I see we're already live. Oh, let me park my bike, 1 second. Well, a very good afternoon and welcome here at the Netherlands residence, also the office of the NTCC. You are live at yet another NTCC webinar, and today you will hear everything about brand storytelling. It's not a hype anymore, but it's becoming more and more active and more live in digital marketing. I'm very pleased to also introduce on my left, maybe the viewers on the right, David Norcross, the managing director, but also founder of Lexicon since 2015. He will tell you all about this amazing company. And he brought his colleague Justin with him, and Justin will also be partly using this Zoom opportunity to share his knowledge with our audience. If you don't know David yet or Justin, I'm sure you might have seen them at various other chambers, because they're very active in 4 or 5 different chamber colleagues. In the American chamber and even the Australian chamber, he's also one of the committee members in communication. I believe last year he was awarded by our British friends the Expat Entrepreneur of the Year 2019. And we have an occasion to celebrate today. Today on LinkedIn, David communicated his 40th co-worker. So he's growing exponentially, and of course we want to hear more how and why and where we can, let's say, tap into his knowledge as well. So his company, where Justin is working as well, is digital PR and brand storytelling. Keep those words in mind, digital PR, brand storytelling. They do all their content in-house, which makes them also different from, let's say, other agencies. They have a nice client base, a growing client base, not only small companies, big companies, hospitality sector, service industry. They will tell you more about that. And if you have any questions during this presentation, please use your chat functionality. And after 45 minutes, both gentlemen will come back to your questions. So let's make this a very interactive webinar. I would now phase out. I'll give David the floor and Justin as well. And I wish you all a very interactive and very knowledgeable webinar. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you, gents. The floor is yours.
Hello, what a lovely introduction that was, Justin.
Yes, it was indeed.
Okay, so thank you everybody for dialing in today. We're going to spend the next hour talking to you about brand storytelling. So brand storytelling, I'm sure you've heard both words before, but how do they go together? What we're going to do today is explain to you how brand storytelling works and also give you a framework that you can use to start telling your own stories immediately. So let me put the presentation on.
Go for it.
All right, so here we are. So the agenda for today is myself and my colleague Justin are going to talk about different parts of the process. I'm going to explain to you storytelling. Where does it come from? What does it mean? And Justin's going to go through the 7 steps with you, 7-step process that you can start to apply to your business to engage with your customers today. Then we're going to show you the importance of strategy as it pertains to brand storytelling. And we're going to open up the last 15 or 20 minutes for a Q&A. So if you have any questions at any point during any slide, please just drop a message into the chat box and we will answer them all at the end. So storytelling. We all tell stories. It is how we communicate with each other. It is how we exist in the world. The earliest humans drew paintings on the wall to try to tell future generations about what their life was like. But all stories in literature, in movies, they all pretty much are the same story. There's only 7 key plots that connect the Bible to Lord of the Rings, to every story you've ever heard. They're all about humans and the challenges that we face. Overcoming monsters, going from poor to rich, going on a journey. These are the stories that we face in life. As I said, all of them pretty much follow the same structure. You have a hero at the start of a story who has a problem. He goes on a journey, has success, comes back. That's called the monomyth from Joseph Campbell. So this storytelling structure is hardwired into our brains at this point. So much so that even when we're asleep, we're telling stories. Our brains absorb the information from the day. and they weave it all together into a narrative as we sleep. Often those narratives make no sense. There's monsters and goblins and all sorts of things, but our brains make sense of the world and our place within it through stories. So if you can tap into that concept, which is hardwired into the minds of your consumer, you will have success. And storytelling is not a overnight sensation, as we discussed. It's something that the cavemen were doing. It's something that they were doing 5,000 years ago, and they'll be doing 10,000 years from now. It is what we are as a species. You could say that humans are storytelling animals. It is what defines us as a species. So if you can understand how to turn your brand into a story, you'll be able to differentiate from your competitors. There is too much content in the world right now. People are bored of advertising. They're bored of the same old messaging. People go on social media to be entertained, to be engaged. So your content has to appear native and it has to be creative. My colleague Justin is going to walk you through right now what you need to know in order to achieve those goals.
All right, thank you, David. So as David was saying, there's tons of content out there in this day and age, and most of it we treat as just noise. We're bombarded with advertising constantly, and we just tune it out instinctively. So how do we as advertisers stand out? We don't want to be part of the noise. We want to make some music here. So what are the mistakes that people are making? Mistake number one is that it's not helping your customer survive. And this is survive not necessarily in a literal sense, it's in a broad sense. Think of people's needs, right? If you're not meeting their physical needs or their emotional needs, they're going to ignore you, right? The other mistake you can make is making people think too much, right? If your ad is too complicated, people are just going to ignore it. We don't want to take the cognitive overhead to figure out a complicated story that's not actually helping me personally, right? So here's an interesting case study that illustrates this point. In 1983, Apple released the computer system Lisa, right? And they took out ads in newspapers, and the ad was a long 1,000-word explanation of what the system was and what it could do. And you'd have to be a software engineer to understand this thing, right? So unsurprisingly, this campaign was not very successful. In 1997, Apple took a different direction. They came out with the Think Different campaign, right? And what happened in the intervening years between 1983 and 1997 is Steve Jobs actually went to work with Pixar, right? He was one of the main investors in Pixar, and he worked with them. Now, aside from being amazing motion graphics animators, Pixar are excellent storytellers. So Steve Jobs learned a few things there. And the Think Different campaign, instead of talking about the product, they're talking about the customers. So you see here, everybody is an internal, everybody has a Miles Davis inside of them, right? Everybody has a Picasso inside of them. They just need a product that'll help them express that, right? And that's what the MacBook was, right? And so this ad campaign was a big part of the reason why Apple are the company we all know today. Did you want to add something?
I was going to say that obviously the 1983 example too, not only was it a failure of advertising, it got Steve Jobs sacked too, right? So he lost his job because of the failure of the Lisa. He went into exile for a while, founded Pixar, and then obviously he came back with this total reframing. So essentially, if you want to be Steve Jobs, not now of course, but in his more successful years, storytelling is the key to that.
Within this slide itself, I think we did an entire hero's journey of Steve Jobs. Moving on. Okay, so before we start creating stories, we need to get our foundation straight, right? So I call this the Grunt test. You need to answer these three questions as clearly as possible. What do you offer? Why do I need it? Where can I get it? Right? And you need to make those answers so simple that even a caveman could understand. So using this Tylenol here, the caveman would say, "You sell headache medicine? Make me headache go away? Me buy at pharmacy?" Right? So the caveman understands what the Tylenol is, where you can get it, and what it does for him. All right, once we have that, we need to start telling stories. Now, how do we do that? As David mentioned, we have the hero's journey. The hero's journey structure is timeless, right? It works in classic novels, it works in movies, it works in an episode of Rick and Morty, and it can work in your brand storytelling, right? There are many different ways to break up the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell has 12 steps. Dan Harmon has 8 steps. For our purposes here, we're going to use Donald Miller's 7 steps. And it basically goes like this. We have a character who has a problem, who then meets a guide, who gives them a plan, calls them to action, that helps them avoid failure and leads them to success. All right, let's get into the details a little bit more here. So this structure actually, if you use this structure, it doesn't matter what kind of content you're producing. It can be explainer videos, it can be funny green screen gimmick content, it can be animated videos, it can be documentaries, it can be social media captions. Doesn't matter what kind of content you're producing. If you use the 7-step framework to underpin all of that, you're almost guaranteed to succeed. All right, so let's get into the details a bit more. So number 1, we start out with the hero. Now the customer is always the hero of your story, okay? Why is that? We'll explain it. When you make yourself the hero of the story, if you start bragging about things that aren't really material to your customers' needs, right? If you start saying, okay, well, we have the biggest factory on the Eastern Seaboard, or we're number 1 in sales, we've been in business for 100 years, your customers will treat you like Shania Twain in that song. They'll say, that don't impress me much. I hope everybody knows that song, otherwise I look really weird right now. But if you know that song, she goes, oh, so you're a rocket scientist. That don't impress me much, right? Oh, so you're Brad Pitt. That don't impress me much. I remember listening to this song as a kid going like, wow, this woman is really difficult to impress. Being a rocket scientist is extraordinarily impressive. What's wrong with her, right? But then later in the song, she goes, well, that won't keep me warm in the middle of the night, right? Okay, so that's what your customers are thinking too. They don't want you to brag to them. They want you to help them. What can you do for them, right? So that's why you need to make them the hero of your story.
It's what's keeping them alive, right? So she needs to be warm for the customer. They need to keep their family alive. They need to earn more money.
Yeah, absolutely. The next step is the problem. So here's where we introduce some conflict. There's no narrative if there's no conflict. There's 3 levels of conflict: external, internal, and philosophical. I won't dwell too much on this, but I'll just give an example. One thing that all of your customers are dealing with right now, a big problem in the world, obviously, is COVID, right? So the external problem is there's a global pandemic, economic uncertainty. The internal problem would be you're worried about your future. The philosophical angle would be, well, I deserve somebody who can guide me through this challenging time. And that someone can be you, right? So that's where you come into the story. You're the guide. Your customers aren't looking for another hero. They need a guide, right? And so that's where you want to position yourself. You don't want to be Luke Skywalker. You want to be Yoda, right? You don't want to be Frodo. You want to be Gandalf. You don't want to be Neo. You want to be Morpheus. Why is that? Because the guide is actually the strongest character in the story, right? The hero has all this doubt and uncertainty. They have problems. The guide has all the answers. So that's where you want to position yourself. In order to be an effective guide, you need to show both empathy and authority. So empathy, I understand what you're going through. Authority, I'm the person to help you, and here's why. So at this point in the story, you can start talking about your accomplishments. But the easiest way to show authority really is through testimonials, right? If you have other people who are known, who are talking about how you helped them, then that helps the hero of your story see that, okay, well, this is a guide that I need to follow.
Justin, I have a couple of questions for you.
Do you know?
I do. So Luke Skywalker is the most powerful Jedi of all time. Why wouldn't you want to be Luke Skywalker?
Well, because Luke Skywalker, at the beginning of the story, is not a powerful Jedi, right? He's just a country boy. He hasn't met the guide yet. So he's kind of an interesting one because he does have 2 guides, right? There's Obi-Wan and there's Yoda. I think we're getting off track here, aren't we?
I think the point is at the start of the story, right? He has no experience. Right. He's never been anywhere. He has no idea what to do. He wants to go on adventures, but he doesn't know how to get there.
Yes.
So it's Luke at the start of the story. It's Frodo at the start of the story. That's where the customer is today.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Next step, we need to give our hero a plan, right? They won't trust us unless we can show them what the end goal looks like and how we're going to get there, okay? And the end goal should be clear, right? Imagine if John F. Kennedy, instead of saying, we're going to put a man on the moon, imagine if he said, we're going to develop a highly competitive and ambitious space program. It's not a clear goal, just doesn't have the same ring to it. So make the plan nice and clear, make the end goal obvious. And then call them to action. People don't take action unless they're challenged to do so. If you believe in your products and services, then by all means, make your call to action loud and clear, right? And this is true within your social media content. It should always have a call to action at the end. And it's true on your website. Put that button right there, obvious on every page. And there can be two types of calls to action, right? There's direct and transitional, right? Buy now, download the white paper, schedule an appointment. That's direct. Transitional will be blogs, testimonials, case studies, things like that. So the direct is like saying, will you marry me? The transitional is more like saying, will you go on a date with me, right? And if you're not quite ready to pop the question, then you can give them more transitional calls to action through your content on your website. That's where all of this stuff lives. So you're putting out a social media post, asking them on a date. They go see your website. They see more of your content. They're more and more interested. And then finally, you're ready to pop the big one. Okay, the next step is to avoid failure, right? We need to show our audience what failure looks like if they don't follow the guide's plan, right? This is the so what factor of the story. It's the salt in the recipe, right? If you put too much salt in it, it will spoil it, but just the right amount gives it more flavor. And this also plays into the theory of loss aversion, so that people dislike losing more than they even enjoy winning. So we don't want to dwell too long here, but we do want to show them what happens if you don't follow the guide. And the final step, the story ends in success. Your hero has completed their transformation. You've taken them from their ordinary, unsure ways, and you've brought them on this journey, and now they're a transformed person. They're just a better person. Did you have something to add at this part earlier?
I think if we take that journey, so you've got a customer who they're not succeeding in their business, they're not doing well, they want to get better, but they don't know where to turn. They find the guide who shows them how to get to success. So if we take the Dutch chamber, for example, you might have the hero. The hero is a new expat, perhaps Dutch, maybe from Amsterdam. They're coming to Thailand. They don't have a network yet. They don't have any business connections. They don't know anything about the city. The hero is Hans and the rest of the chamber. He has been there before. He has taken many people on this journey before. He's helped them grow their business. He's given them connections. He has a plan. He knows what to do. Call to action, meet with Hans. And if you're ready, become a member. It's very reasonably priced. The value is very good. And the success point 6 months later, 12 months later is that this new expat all of a sudden has new friends, has new business opportunities, has raised their profile within the city because they went on a journey with the Dutch chamber that led them to a new place where they're the new hero, they're the new guide. And that structure applies to really any business.
That's really good. We have a hero's journey within a hero's journey, right? You meet Hans, who's the guide, and then he takes you where you need to be, and now you're ready to be your own guide.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've gone through the 7 steps, let's go back to the beginning and remember and try to think about, does your own brand, does it pass the grunt test, right? Earlier we had the Tylenol example, which is pretty straightforward and simple. It doesn't matter how complex you think your company might be, you could still break it down and make it pass the grunt test, right? So if you sell professional services and accounting consulting solutions, okay, this is a complicated string of words for our caveman here, but if you could say, okay, you sell professional services, make my company more efficient, me buy on your website. Okay, let's look at a few examples of this principle in action. Oh, before we start the video though, okay, so I do want you to pay attention to how this video follows the 7-step structure, right? This one is more of a sales video, but it very explicitly follows the structure. So let's,
so who's the hero?
Okay, so do we want to give this away? So
Well, think about who the hero is.
Yes, okay, so the hero in this story will be an expat, okay, coming to Thailand. They want to find a home, okay? They don't know the city, they're unfamiliar with it, they need a guide, okay? And that's where our guide will come in, our real estate agent, who's gonna give them a plan, find them a place to live, but not only that, help them find schooling for their kids, help them with a cell phone plan, all of this kind of stuff. She'll help you with that because she's your ultimate guide, right? And then in the end, you found a beautiful new home to live in, And also, you've made a lifelong friend. So let's check out this heartwarming story. Whoop. Oh, I spoiled it. All right, here we go. Sorry, everybody. Was that you I saw on the end of the video, David?
That was me, yes.
Okay.
I'm also an actor.
Yes, multi-talented man. So as you can see in the video, there's no one hero in the story, but the text on the screen addresses the audience directly. So it's kind of a universal audience. But you can see that Lecky in this story is positioned as the guide, and the real focus of the story is on the customer. Okay, so let's watch another one. This one follows it even more closely. So this is just textbook 7-step hero's journey. All right,
Yeah, as you said, Justin, I think one of the pain points that we all share right now is that COVID has destroyed, COVID has destroyed businesses all over the world. Everyone's suffering, everyone's going through a tough time. So it is right now easier than ever to identify a universal pain point. So this video, it does exactly that. It provides positions the hero really clearly and takes them on a journey.
All right.
You're not alone. Business owners all over Thailand and around the world are wondering how they're going to survive this COVID crisis. In your situation, you've got 3 options. Option 1, we rethink your strategy. What new technologies can you adapt? What new markets can you tap into? How can you improve and diversify your supply chain? Option 2, we look at restructuring your entire business. We renegotiate your debts and loans. We find cost-cutting opportunities. We outsource certain functions. We apply for loans and grants, and we may look at selling off parts of the business or rationalising. Option 3, if the debts are too big, no cash, you should look at applying for formal business protection with the Thai courts. If the court grants this protection, creditors cannot take any action against you for the period of the reorganisation. This gives the opportunity to work through options 1 and 2. But whatever you decide to do, Grant Thornton is here to help you.
Okay, so as you saw at the beginning of the story, we start with the customer, the hero, right? The businessman who his business is failing right now due to COVID. He doesn't know what to do. And then you've got your hero, you've got your problem, and then the guide appears like an actual genie in this video. Poof, and now Ian Pascoe is here to help, right? He immediately demonstrates empathy, right? He goes, you're not alone, right? Businesses all over Thailand are struggling right now. And then he takes them on the journey, right? He takes the hero on a journey. He demonstrates authority by showing his knowledge, right? He takes them through the plan, makes a very clear plan. And then there's a call to action, right? We've got the failure already in there. And then at the end of the video, it ends with success, right? Textbook 7-step storytelling framework. But we don't necessarily need to follow it that closely at all times. As long as that's the philosophy underpinning all of your content, then you can dwell on certain parts more than others. So for example, in that video, although it did go through the 7 steps pretty explicitly, there was a lot of emphasis on the plan. We spent a lot of time explaining what the end goal is and how to get there, right? Those are the 3 options, going through restructuring, applying for loans and grants, all of this stuff, and if all else fails, applying for formal protection with the Thai courts, right? So emphasis on the process for that one. But in other videos, we don't even need to, oh, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say for the 7-step structure, I think this is, if you're ever making any content that is expensive or time consuming and you intend to show it to a huge audience, I think you have to follow the 7 steps. So every website should follow this. Every hero video like we just saw should follow this. Every video that's on your homepage should follow this, because that's the key message for you to convey. But as Justin mentioned, there's different types of call to action. You've got the buy now call to action and the learn more call to action. And I think one of the key things that you said was the display of empathy and authority. Now, as I said, for those big concepts like a website or a hero video or even a brochure, you have to follow this structure. But for social media content, it's a constant experience of showing empathy. And it's, you know, you're not necessarily going to have space for those 7 steps, but you're taking little bits from each of it. You're taking vignettes to make little stories about the empathy that you have good staff, you have good people, you take care of them, the authority, your case studies, your successes, your clients. So as you said, within this 7-step framework is everything a business needs for marketing. And they can pull parts of it depending on the context in which they're operating at that time. And I think this next video is a great example of that.
Yes, all right, cue the next video.
Normally at this time of year we'd be expecting clear economic skies with a very fine outlook. However, Thailand is in the midst of a major economic storm right now. There's no doubt about that. If we look at the southern region, tourism and hospitality have been devastated. We're looking at a potential losses of $47 billion this year. Domestic tourism is picking up, but we won't likely see pre-COVID numbers in this sector until there's a vaccine available. If we move up to the eastern seaboard here, manufacturing is way down. Automotive is particularly struggling at this time. The country's vehicle output will likely be about half of what it was this time last year. Continuing up into the north and the northeast, agricultural exports are mostly falling. It's just one example. We're expecting the lowest rice exports we've seen in the last 10 years. Now, if we zoom into Bangkok here, we can see retail, airlines, entertainment, manufacturing, real estate development are all facing strong headwinds. There are some sunny spots in areas like tech and healthcare, but on the whole, the economic climate is still looking extremely volatile. But there is a solution. If your business needs help weathering this storm and finding areas of growth, Grunt, we're here to help.
Great performance there. Sorry about that. How do we go full screen again?
Do you want to keep talking?
Yes, sorry about that. Okay, part of that is me just wanting to show you guys this video because it was my brainchild and I'm proud of it. But that's an excellent just piece of social media content. And it doesn't go through the 7 steps, but there's a clear defined hero, and that's the audience, right? That's the business that's struggling right now due to COVID. And it's just an entertaining piece of content that just works well on social media. Right. I lost my train of thought here. But yeah, so it's him showing his expertise. It's him showing how knowledgeable he is about the situation, what people are going through. And then a call to action at the end, Grant Thornton, we're here to help, right? So it's just those 2 steps really. Okay, so it's the problem and it's the call to action. But then within a larger framework, if you go check out their other content, if you go to their website, that's where all of the other steps are more built in and more explicitly stated. Right? So as long as you keep the philosophy of the hero's journey as the underpinning for all your content, there's almost no way you can fail. Right? David, did you have more to add here? I'll turn it over to you now.
Okay, thanks, Justin. I think that piece of content is an excellent example of the always-on approach to storytelling, of brand storytelling. Obviously, there's a very unique persona in play there that it probably wouldn't work for everybody, but because of the character of Ian, because he's able to be funny as well as professional at the same time, it really works well for him. And at no point here are we ever talking about the services of Grant Thornton. It's more the showing of the empathy and the authority that we discussed earlier. So your content should always be looking to show your empathy and authority, but it also has to be designed to be interesting. Nobody wants to watch a 1-hour video of someone talking about boring things. Hopefully that's not what we're doing. But we have to be aware of social media. This video is about 1 minute long. It's constantly giving information every couple of seconds, and that's what we need to do to survive. But the question is, how do you achieve that? Now, brand storytelling is not about creating fairy stories for your business. We don't have to talk about Cinderella and Snow White. That's not the purpose. It's all about that display of empathy and authority. It's telling the real stories of your business. Who are your people? What makes them tick? What are the core values of your company? Who are your clients? What do they think about what you do? What do you do for the community? These are the types of stories that tell what your business does. Not just talking constantly about we have a new product or we have a discount, but building the sense of who your business is. So you can increase your margins even, because people want to do business with people that they like and that they trust. And that's especially true in Thailand. So in order to achieve this, you have to think about your brand as if it was a real person. So think about what your brand would look like if it was a real person. How would it speak? What would it speak about? This is called a persona. So your brand can be charming, funny, it can be wise, or it can be annoying and shallow and stupid. You need to put a lot of work into making sure it's the earlier things. So you need to define your brand. You need to make a plan and a strategy that allows you to consistently, over time, connect with your target audience. So a clear strategy allows for you to have consistency in how you speak and how you look. It allows you to get alignment between your team in-house and any agency partners that you work with, as well as planning way in advance. So one of the biggest challenges that companies have is to be consistent with their output on social media. They have a great week or a great month and they go quiet for 3 months and then they come back again. So in order to have success, you need to be able to plan months ahead. And also, there's no point doing any marketing activity without a clear goal in mind. So by having a good strategy, you can set KPIs and achieve creative on-brand storytelling. So consistency in your tone and your style. You need to have a brand who is consistent over time. When I speak to Justin today and I speak to Justin next week, he's the same person, I hope. He has a similar sense of dress, a similar tone of voice. His accent is the same. I know Justin, I trust Justin, I do business with Justin. If every week or every day Justin had a different accent or a completely different fashion sense, it would be hard to trust him because I wouldn't really know what he was all about. Your brand is the same. You need to define your visual style. What kind of colors are you using? What kind of font are you using? How do you speak to your audience? Are you telling jokes or are you a very serious person? You need to document this so that all of your company speaks in the same way. This is a mistake that so many companies make, that they don't clearly articulate what they should look and sound like. If you don't do that, that's the first level. You're going to fail before you even get started. So a clear brand identity is the first step. And you achieve this by putting together a document like this. Now, this is the kind of strategy that we make when we work with a client. There's 10 steps in that strategy. The first one is the brand, which we discussed already. That's the way you look, the way you sound. But equally important is the audience that you're speaking to. So if your brand is a person, that person has friends. And just like when you're speaking to your parents or your wife or your friends, you speak different topics to those different people. And your audience is the same. They're going to have some questions about what you do. They're going to want to hear certain things from you, but not other things. So doing some audience research, whether that is simple desktop research or whether that's focus groups. Identify the questions they have about your business so that you can create content that's designed to address those pain points. As Justin said, define the hero, understand what they need from you so you can give them the solutions they need. Once you have all of that done, you can put together a content calendar like this. Now, for many clients, they'll have each day of the week represents a different type of content. So Monday might be articles, Tuesday might be videos, or it could be that it's different themes every day. So Monday could be the story of the brand, Tuesday could be a particular service line, Friday might be community engagement, competitions, quizzes, pictures of upcoming events or former events. This kind of uniform approach to content marketing allows for great consistency because you can plan way ahead and you can ensure that you have great content always, especially if you're working with an agency partner like us, because there's a sign-off process. You need to create the year plan, which is the big idea, the big message, and then monthly or quarterly themes, and then each day of the week, a different type of content. That requires a lot of engagement and a lot of interaction, especially if you want to make it successful. So by having a clear sense of brand and audience, you can plan way ahead and have great success. And also one of the great things about digital marketing is that everything can be measured. So you don't need to speak to 60 million people in Thailand. Whatever industry you're in, there's a niche for you. That niche might only be 100 people. You can speak to those people every day of the week. And you can measure success, whether success for you is sales or downloads or Google rankings or the number of people seeing your content. You can measure all of that. And if you've got a strong brand and a clear sense of your audience, you cannot fail as long as you tell the right story. As Justin said at the start, creative on-brand storytelling follows a particular structure. For us, whatever the client's industry, whether they're retail or manufacturing or professional services or entertainment, we follow the same structure. Now, the inputs are always different. Of course, how a football team communicates and how a bank communicates, they have different personas, different personalities, different styles of writing, different visual styles, but all of them follow that same hero's journey structure. And that's where Lexicon is able to help clients of all sizes, from very small companies with 2 people all the way up to multinationals. And as Hans kindly said, we're growing quickly because what we do really works. And not only that, but it's fun. It's much more fun to tell stories about your business than just to pump out boring press releases every day. So I hope that what we've shown you today has been useful. As I said, you can start to apply this formula today. Think about the questions. Who are you trying to speak to? Who specifically are you communicating with? And what are the challenges they face today? What can your business do to give them a pathway to success? Whatever industry you're in, you definitely have that option. So in summary, the marketing, advertising, and PR worlds are converging. In previous years, you would have 3 different agencies doing that stuff for you. And then maybe a different creative agency making the images for you, a copywriting agency making your written content. That's all merging together. The future is not going to be 20 agency partners. It's going to be one. You'll work with one company who will take care of all of it for you. Previously, you would spend $1 million on a big advertising campaign that would be on a billboard or it would be on TV, and that would be all you do all year. These days, with social media, you can be much more granular. You can have content every day telling that same story that costs you much less to produce than one big annual campaign. And you can segment that content to different groups of your audience: old people, young people, expats, locals, all of them. So instead of just trying to speak one time to your audience, brand storytelling allows you to be constantly in conversation with your audience. For retail companies, that means every day they get a chance to sell. For some industries like a chamber of commerce or like a Lexicon or like a professional services company, people only make those decisions 1 time a year or 2 times a year. So it's important that you're always maintaining the share of mind, that you're always there reminding them of how you can help them without ever being too pushy. So that's it from us. I believe, Hans, we have a bit of time left for Q&A.
Stop sharing.
Yep.
Well, indeed, we do have some questions already coming in. The first question, thank you, Danique, for asking that question. The first video I think we've seen showed some of the steps, but she mentioned that it's avoided the failure step, or to avoid failure step, right? So in this particular video, how would you integrate this particular step as an example?
That is a great question. In this particular case, the failure would be being homeless. And I don't know if we would want to dwell on that. But the video does touch on the uncertainty that people are facing. So they're coming to a new city, they don't really know, they need somebody to help them find their footing, right? They need somebody to help them find a home. So really, the failure here is just the uncertainty. But good point, we did avoid that particular part of the story. We didn't dwell on it, certainly. But there are other types of content, like if you go to their website, it's more explicit.
I think for that particular video too, the audience was quite well defined. It wasn't every person looking to find a home. The buyer's journey for that particular company is usually that the husband is being sent on an expat assignment. And so it's the wife that's looking for the property. So part of the pain point, part of the failure is, is this person, am I going to make any friends when I go there? Am I going to be lonely? Am I going to know anybody? So, I guess we didn't dwell on the fact that you're going to be lonely and you're going to be sad, but we're indirectly addressing all of those things, that this is a person who's going to make you feel at home. They're going to not just give you a home, but give you a community to tap into. So yeah, as Justin said, the failure part is a sprinkle of salt. We don't want to be scaring people, but it always needs to be part of your planning, even if you don't execute it.
That video was more of a dessert anyway, so it was more of like a piece of cake, so you don't want to be putting salt on that.
Another question just came in. Thank you, Stefan, for zooming in today as well. Stefan van der Sluis, he's asking, can you share with us one of your best customer success case stories which you as Lexicon has dealt with in the past?
I think the best possible example I could ever give you about any company using brand storytelling to succeed is a little company called Lexicon.
Shameless.
We had 3 staff 3 years ago, and everything that we do for our clients, we do for ourselves. So we've grown from 3 to 40 people in less than 4 years. It's about 3 and a bit years, because we're always talking about giving advice to people. We give everything we do away for free. Constantly. We have a blog every week giving help and advice to a particular community. Our community is chambers of commerce and their members. That's all we need to speak to. We're not really looking for anyone else, because those people are interested in marketing because they're part of a chamber of commerce. They're internationally minded because they're in a foreign chamber of commerce, and they have budget to spend on advertising because they're in a chamber of commerce. So we focused all our energies on being the guide for that audience, which is why we're here today. This is a great example of the way we do it. So by following our own process, we've scaled up massively, and the same formula can work for any company that truly buys into it.
Would you maybe want to mention Grant Thornton as a success story? How they outsourced to us, or is that talking out of school?
Probably out of school.
Okay.
Right, thank you for that. In the meantime, Rick, thank you for joining us as well. Rick has the following question. You both say that the story is about, or your story is about solving problems. Now, how can you combine this with a story about how my product differentiates from competition? So is that something you want to avoid? Is that a mixing of messages? So in your brand storytelling, how can I differentiate my product, my service from my competitor?
Yeah, absolutely. It's how you position yourself as the guide, right? And so that's the differentiation. There are other guides out there, but you're the one that they can trust.
Yeah, exactly. You show how you're solving problems better than the other person. You're showing, again, you don't have to criticize them, but you can show data and statistics on how your product works better or it solves problems better. You can have your customers tell that story for you. So you can, part of the story you tell could be, it could be a story of the success your customers have had by using your product. It could be insights from them on what you've done to change their business model. So there's always a way to, any issue can be framed as a story.
Yeah, and even if we're not discussing the product or service in and of itself, just using the framework is a differentiator. Just positioning yourself in that way, you'll stand out.
Yeah, because it's the mistake most companies make, is they forget that they're not the hero.
Right. So by positioning your customer as the hero and you as the guide, you're showing empathy with them. So it's like David was saying, empathy and authority. If you're playing those two things, you'll be in a great position to succeed.
Absolutely.
We are still allowing a few more questions from the audience. This morning when I drove the BTS to the office, I wrote down a few questions myself, and I hope you don't mind sharing those questions with you. Interested in what are the common pitfalls? I understand storytelling is about fun. This kind of work you do seems to be very fun, and you're trying to connect to the hearts of the consumer or the end user. Do you have any examples where this might go wrong, where the fun element is actually taking over, but I'm having a serious product or a serious service, or I'm a serious company? So where is that balance?
Sure. I think fun is not, it's not always fun in the end product. The end product can be serious. Like it doesn't have to be fun in the execution. The process itself is fun. Like it's coming up with these ideas and finding the best way to apply the formula is fun. But often we're working with NGOs where the story they're telling is very serious. That they're trying to raise awareness of, female issues, gender inequalities, or more serious things like that. So the end product is not fun at all. But by using this formula, as we laid out above, if you have a clear sense of who you are as a business, who your audience is, and you make that into a plan, a content plan and a strategy, you can't really fail. As long as you put the work in at the start, you use competent people to develop that for you. The failure is to not follow those rules. Like if you don't think of yourself as the guide and you're just talking about how much of a hero you are, you won't engage. If the content you're making is not designed for the audience you're talking to, you won't get the results. So the biggest pitfall is really to not follow the formula.
Just to pick up on something you were saying there real quick, like not every story is a comedy, obviously. But just because the subject matter is serious, and this is not really a counterpoint, this is a side point, but just because the subject matter is serious doesn't mean that you can't present it in a fun way. So as you saw with the Weatherman video, it's a silly gimmick, but the content matter is deadly serious, right? It's very serious time for people, but it doesn't mean that you can't present it in a way that's engaging and fun.
Yeah, and it's important that you do that too. Like you have to think about the platform that you're on. So if you're speaking as a keynote speaker, there's a certain expectation that goes with that. But if you're on social media, people expect a certain type of content. And not only that, I think the videos that we've shown you today, sometimes you post a video on LinkedIn and it's seen by 12 people and one person clicks like. The result of that is you get no reach. So the purpose of marketing is to reach as many people as possible. It's brand awareness. So by creating content that's fun and engaging, more people engage with it. Therefore, you get more reach, even without spending any money on advertising. So as Justin was saying, creativity, I'd say more than fun is a better phrasing for it, right? It's be creative, but sometimes it's not fun.
Yeah, well said.
Another question just came in. Thank you for addressing that one. How can brand storytelling apply to social development organizations?
Okay.
I think you touched on it a little bit just there.
Why don't we talk about USA?
Why don't you talk about USA?
Okay, sure. So, of course, a social development organization, usually they're working towards a particular mission. Those guys, more than anybody, will have a clearly defined persona, and it's usually a particular type of person. Stories are gonna be more effective than data. We could say, 17% of children in Thailand are iron deficient. Okay, that's sad, but show me that. Let's show me the story of the people and what happens to them and what the impact is on their lives. Let's go out into the field and learn about these people and show them to the world. The stories of everyday people are what we love the most. Like for us, content that we make that features real people always gets better engagement than content that doesn't, because humans want empathy. We want to engage with each other. So I think storytelling for social development organizations is pretty much the only thing they can really do. Like, you need to touch people's hearts. You need to address their pain points in order to get donations or in order to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not, just as humans, storytelling is so innate in us. We're not so great at thinking about problems in the abstract. All right, so whatever, 1 million people, we're much more interested in the story of one person that represents, and then we can extrapolate from there. So definitely, if just focusing on humanity and human stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Niels, for asking your question. Niels, all the way from Chiang Mai.
Wow.
What would be the, on top of your head, suggestion for promoting doing business in Thailand?
Doing business in Thailand?
So what would be, let's say, one of your suggestions when you want to, well, probably what he means to advise a customer, when you want to do business in Thailand, what would be your storyline, storytelling, right, Niels?
The government would be our client?
Maybe
So maybe how to set up a business in Thailand and succeed, or?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you think about, follow the structure, right? So
First of all, join a chamber.
yes. Join the Dutch chamber is the first step. So you'd have to follow the process. So the person is I would imagine, an entrepreneur from a different country that's looking at their options around the region. Their pain points are going to be, how much does it cost? Am I going to be happy to live in that country? Is it safe? You'd have to make content that addresses those pain points and then show them how you resolve those issues. So for me, as a person that is doing business in Thailand, it's difficult to set up. So I would like the video of the property agent. Show me how it's not going to hurt me. Show me how it's not going to be painful. Show me how I don't have to worry because someone's taking care of me. I think whether it's executed that way or not, that has to be the message, that you understand the pain of this person and their concerns. And then you, as the guide, have been there 100 times before. You've guided many, many people similar to me on this journey. Here's what happened to them. They set up business in Thailand and now they're a billionaire. And that's all because of the support you gave them. So make the narrative in the same way Justin described it. Like, for any business, for any industry, that formula works.
And it also can cross borders as well. So you can bring it from the Netherlands, it'll work over there, and it'll work in Thailand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can localize it as much as possible. You can zoom in to certain, you can zoom out. It's just universal framework.
Exactly. It's a universal human framework. So it works everywhere.
Great. Another question from my end. Again, this morning on my BTS trip here. We have conducted webinars 2 years ago with a group of St-Denis digital marketing students, and it was all about using influencers. That was a hot topic a few years ago. Would you, as the specialist, recommend using these influencers? And yes, why, or no, why not?
Short answer, yes. But it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're going to get a superstar influencer like Kim Kardashian, that's going to create more awareness. But if you're trying to gain credibility within a certain community, within a certain target audience, then a micro influencer who's well known and respected within that community will definitely lend their credibility to your brand. And I mean, we can get into the details about which is which and what situations you'd want to use one or the other. But one really important thing, if you're using an influencer, you need your values and their values to align for it to be believable. There's an infamous case where Naomi Campbell, she's a supermodel, she posted on her Instagram, "Oh, I love my new Adidas shoes," but she copy pasted the email from her publicist saying, "Please say I love my new Adidas," right? And she posted that. So it's just obviously she's doing the most minimal effort. And so in that case, that just ruins their credibility. Like, it's just not real. Do you want to add to that?
Sure. There's 3 types of media that you can be involved with. There's the media that you own, which is your website, your social media channels, your newsletter even. Then there's media that you earn through good publicity, and there's media that you pay for. So influencer marketing is one of those other 2. I think the phrase is almost a dirty phrase at this point, that people think it's a negative thing, but
It is true. Every time the word influencer comes up, I kind of go, ugh.
But it's a form of PR. So just like for me, perhaps I would want to be in the Bangkok Post because that's where many of our customers are. Influencer marketing is the same thing. So even in a B2B space, what I'm doing now is influencer marketing. I'm leveraging Hans and his network to speak about my business. That's influencer marketing. So it's a strategic business move that it makes sense. As Justin said, you have to choose wisely, but as with the strategy, know who your audience is and know where they go and be where they are. So ideally they come to you and your channels, but if not, you can target advertise to them, or you can leverage existing relationships through chambers of commerce, through the media, through influencer marketing. Basically, you want to tell your story to your audience wherever they go online, through your media and through the media that you earn.
Right, we're almost at the end, but I still have one burning question because we are currently conducting another webinar, and I know all of you guys, girls, would like to have physical meetings like we can see each other here. So would storytelling be not only effective in the digital marketing space, but would you also recommend this to, let's say, sales people or MDs who are conducting trade shows? There's a big trade show going on in Biotech again. Hopefully soon borders will open, we can all meet again. Would storytelling be something you recommend also in, let's say, physical talks, in that 2-minute talk you conduct during a networking event, things like that?
I don't know if I'm giving away trade secrets here, but I frequently have meetings with David and clients, and I see him like literally following the 7-step framework. He hasn't stated it, but the questions he's asking are following the 7 steps, right? They don't see it, but I do. So yes. Short answer, in a business situation, in a sales situation, for sure. Establish yourself as the guide, establish your customer as the hero. You're always telling stories about your brand, right? If you're the face of your brand, you're living that story in real life. It doesn't need to only be online, it can be in real life too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a salesperson, you have to know the pain points of your audience, or you're not going to be able to sell to them. So it's not dishonest, like it's real. Like you genuinely have solutions for these people. You genuinely have done it for similar people many times before. So by framing what you do in a narrative, it is, as we've spoken about during all of today, it's the most human thing you could ever do. So if you can tap into that, you can tap into the imagination, you can tap into aspiration. That's where people make decisions. They don't usually make them logically, they make them with their emotions. So the more you can use storytelling, you can circumvent the logical part of the brain even and get into the more primal part where I think a lot of our decisions really come from.
Interestingly put.
Great. Well, thank you both gentlemen for sharing your knowledge and your expertise with our audience. Thank you, audience, for zooming in again on one of the NTCC webinars. Stay tuned for a few more upcoming, also very interesting webinars. Wednesday, 30th of September, for our industry group, the Industry 4.0 webinar by KUKA Robotics. What is the influence of robotics and how do we use that in the future, or currently already in the manufacturing world? Monday, 5th of October, of course, our monthly NTCC Cafe opposite the road on Wireless Road on the Indigo Hotel rooftop bar Char. More than welcome everybody to catch up with your business friends over a glass of wine, beer, or Sprite. Wednesday, the 8th of October, already the 4th edition of our Sustainability for Business Forum. We do this together with the French and the Swedish Chamber. So this is a multi-chamber event, and we expect a nice turnout audience. It will be in a hybrid format, so you can join us live at the Marriott Marquis, or again online via Zoom. And last but certainly not least, mark your diaries, Friday night, 20th November, the annual NTCC Gala Dinner with this year's theme, NTCC Rethink Business Awards Night. So this is something we're very much looking forward to. We have already 195 people signed up for this event. We still have ample seats and tables for you to purchase, so the marketing messages will come your way in the coming days. This will be held at the Siam Kempinski Hotel. And like I said, we're very much looking forward to that event. Thank you very much. Stay healthy, stay safe. Again, David, Justin, thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you, Hans.
Thank you, guys.
Have a lovely evening, everyone. And
hope to see you in person.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.